Welcome. So glad that all of you are here today. Before I introduce Dr. Michelle Borba, I want to just let you know about the Powerful Project. For those of you who don't know, the Powerful Project is a relatively new nonprofit whose mission is to support children and families in need of mental health support, counseling, and specifically supporting those families who are stuck in the middle. So they make too much to the government subsidized programs, but not enough to meet the families' needs. So that's where the Powerful Project comes in. Families will pay what they can afford, and then we match it with funding from the Powerful Project. Am I repeating? Can you hear me okay? Make it louder.
Okay. I think we're hearing the return from someone that isn't muted. I think that's what's happening.
Okay, so if everybody can put themselves on mute, that might help the feedback. It's already gone. Awesome. So
if you can turn yourself up a little bit, that might be helpful too. If there's
okay, so I will try to make the volume louder, or I will speak a little louder. Okay, let's see how this goes. So if you are or if you know a family that would benefit from mental health support, please let them know about the Powerful Project. If you want to volunteer, if you have any skills and time and would like to volunteer, please reach out to us. And most importantly, if you can donate, we have 11 children waiting for scholarship funding right now. So thank you so much for learning and knowing more about the Powerful Project. Now I'm just going to briefly introduce our sponsors. Oops, am I sharing my screen? Oh, goodness. I am showing my, all right, hang on here. Thank you all for bearing with me as I navigate some technology.
Yeah, we still need everyone to mute their microphone.
Let's mute microphones while I try to, okay. I am trying to, this is a little embarrassing, but play from start. Here we go. Okay. Welcome. I'll do a little bit about the Powerful Project. If you want more information, it's powerfulproject.org. Our first sponsor is WePlay Pediatric Occupational Therapy in Atlanta, Georgia. This is an occupational therapy practice that works with children of all ages, specializing in sensory integration. They are a wealth of knowledge. WePlayAtlanta.com. Our next sponsor is Perspectives Center for Holistic Therapy. Perspectives offers psychotherapy, counseling, there's speech therapy, feeding therapy, parent support, network care, wellness coaching. There are free groups and workshops on their website, which is perspectivesholistictherapy.com. One group that's been really popular is a Lego group. It's working with Legos and learning about the big four emotions, and that's been huge. It's a free group for kids, so you can check that out. Our next sponsor is the Zones of Regulation, zonesofregulation.com, and this is a curriculum that a lot of therapists use, and parents can use it as well at home. Really teaching lessons and activities to gain skills in the area of self-regulation and emotional control for preschoolers all the way up through adults. Two Thumbs Up, and their website is twothumbsupinc.com. They are a nonprofit who puts on events for neurodiverse and neurotypical teenagers. So it's a beautiful melding of all types of brains, and now they're doing beautifully with even doing things via Zoom. Once the pandemic gets under control, they'll be back in person, but it's really beautiful what they're doing. Okay, and our last sponsor is Vital. Vital is an Sacred Geometry Inspired Clothing Company. And they are offering 15% off to all of our participants for using the coupon code POWERFUL for t-shirts, leggings, etc. So we are grateful for our sponsors. And now I get to welcome Dr. Michelle Borba. However, I just need to figure out, there we go. Okay. Are you all hearing the doorbell sound?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. It will stop in a moment. Dr. Michelle Borba is a former teacher, mom of 3 boys. You may have seen her on the Today Show because she has been an expert guest speaker over 150 times. She is a passionate advocate for children's mental health and healing and development, which is what the Powerful Project is all about. She has worked in 19 countries. I find that fascinating, and has written 24 books. Just a little busy. Her latest book, Thrivers, is based on interviewing 100 middle school and high school students from diverse backgrounds all over the world. Today, we have the privilege to hear from Dr. Borba herself as she shares about the core assets survey that she's developed and the 7 essential character strengths to help our children thrive. So it is with my deep honor and pleasure to welcome you, Dr. Borba.
Oh, thank you. I'm just so honored to be here. Our whole philosophies are so meshed and in sync that it's just absolutely a joy. I guess I'm going to start by asking, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right, good. Then here we go. Because I have been actually for 40 years trying to figure out why some kids struggle and others shine. Seriously, laid blooper to the spot. But I started way back when as a special education teacher with very severe emotional needs kids. I worked with trauma children, foster care youth, and then across the board, I realized every kid needs to be resilient and learn how to be resilient. And then came the pandemic. Along the way, prior to the pandemic, I was very concerned because I was looking at the research that was saying that 1 in 5 of American kids will suffer from some kind of a mental health disorder. We do know that the more adverse situations that our kids confront, the more likely they are to be able to topple. But then came the most profound bit of research I've ever seen in my life, Emmy Warner. She changed my life. She was one of a score of books all on the back shelf here that I've been reading. And I think that her work is very instrumental to all of us right now. She had the same question that you've all wondered. Why do some kids struggle and why do some kids shine? So she began to study a group of children, hundreds of them, and growing up in the island of Kauai. She got a huge team of researchers, social workers, pediatricians, psychologists, and they all began to identify kids who were suffering from extreme adversity. Sexual abuse, physical abuse, schizophrenic parents, poverty, homelessness. And as she just started to study them, same kids for 40 years, she found something that she wasn't prepared for. And that is by adolescents, many of them were making it despite the adversity. As they grew up and became adults, a large portion of them were making it. But then she came up with a why factor. And when she tuned it in, she began to study there was one commonality, actually 2. The single most important commonality of kids who make it despite adversity is that they've got a caring champion on their life. If not a parent, it's a teacher or a great Aunt Sally or a grandparent who refuses to give up on the child. That is paramount. But the second thing she discovered is that those kids who can handle the adversity, who are able to bounce back and become what I call a thriver, a kid that's got that I got it attitude, are children who have learned protective factors. So what I want to do is just talk to you a little bit about this, because I took her work, then Ann Manston's work, then Norm Vermeese's work, then Michael Rudder's work, and I came up with Thrivers. It was all of the work combined to try to figure out what are the most highly correlated traits that help kids bounce back. I came up with 7, and I was extremely picky on these 7. The 7 traits, number 1, had to be teachable. Number 2, they had to be universal. I work in 19 countries. I want to be able to make sure that I can teach these in Abu Dhabi, as well as Guatemala, as well as New York. Third is not only do they help kids handle adversity and bounce back and highly correlated to resilience, The next thing about the 7 is that each one of them also helps kids in a classroom become a peak performer. Teachers are saying, but I don't have time to teach these because I have to teach that. Okay, it's not either or, it's both. And finally, you can do it at home as well as in the classroom. These are the 7 that are going to help our kids thrive. You can start teaching them at age 2 and you keep on going. If you're worried about yourself, they also work for you. What I want to do is share with you each of these 7. Each one of them, the book just came out in March, but each chapter in the book is one of these 7. You're going to get a handout later on that shows you that not only it tells you what the strengths are, but also what are the 3 most highly correlated skills that you can teach. And then in Thrivers, each chapter has not only the 3 skills for each trait, but also dozens of science-backed, simple, practical ways that parents and teachers can teach them age by age. So if you're ready to go with me, I want to go through a few of them, all 7 of them, just to give you a bird's eye picture of what they look like. And it seems as though the foundation of them is self-confidence, or a clear understanding of who I am and what my strengths are, not necessarily my self-esteem, but this understanding of my own awareness of me. It could be awareness of my strengths, but also understanding my weaknesses. And as a result, they're more likely to thrive. It seems to be the foundation. My concern when I was talking to hundreds of kids across the country and interviewing them is that this piece is lying dormant. Most of the kids told me, we feel like we're being raised as products and test scores. We're missing the stuff on how to be human. And we're also looking at the majority of our kids saying that they feel empty, that they're running on empty. Fascinating enough, prior to the pandemic, the kids who were most at risk were the affluent children. That's what we're looking at Luther's studies. So when we look at it, how do we instill confidence in our kids? First, we look at science, because I want to make sure that you understand that everything I'm talking about is science-driven stuff. And some of the most fascinating things is that if you really do want a happy child, you identify what their natural strengths are. I would encourage you as a parent, just take an index card over the next couple of weeks and watch each of your kids. Don't let them know you're watching. But take a moment to look at kinds of traits we do know that help our children recognize this is something that is my interest. This is something I'm good at. There are kinds of things that the kid gives a little more tenacity to. Their tone of their voice is that they're a little more eager. This is the kind of kid who will clearly say, you know, Mom, I can't do the chocolate cake right now because I want to stick with my woodworking. That means this is something that really drives the child. Bill Damon says, this is going to give your kid a sense of purpose. And the fascinating, sad thing is, when we're looking at even Stanford kids coming in right now, only 20% of them, says Bill Damon, probably the foremost adolescent psychiatrist we have in the world, says only 20% of the kids now coming in have a sense of purpose. They're driven by what their parents want them to be, as opposed to who they are internally and inside. So take a moment, because this also go back to Emmy Warner. Remember good old Emmy Warner? She says something fascinating that we've overlooked. One of the simplest ways to raise a resilient child is give them a hobby. Hobbies help a kid decompress. When I ask kids, what are your hobbies? It could be knitting, it could be woodwork, it could be violin, it could be art. It doesn't mean you're going to be winning a Nobel Peace Prize for it, but you just love it. The kids told me, I don't have time for a hobby. And the fascinating thing is, the everyday kid doesn't have time for a hobby because we've kind of put them into activity to activity. Well, now's the moment, folks, because we've got a pandemic. They're hunkered down with us. Now's the time to start introducing them to different kinds of things that.
You got muted, Michelle.
Michelle, you're on mute.
I don't know why.
You're
Thank you, though. There we go. And somehow I can't. There we go. The second thing is, we don't know that second part of it is our children have a sense of empathy. Now, here we go. The first thing is they have a sense of confidence. There's a lot of other things that we could do. My goal is to just give you a bird's eye view of the 7. Once they have a strength knowledge that they can decompress, they understand what their strengths are, and they can accept their weaknesses. We've got to tailor that a little more. One other point that I find fascinating is that too often the kids say that my parents are raising me based on what they want me to be, not who I am. I interviewed one dad who kind of laughed when I said that. He says, yeah, that's me. I have a couple of sons, and I'll never forget my middle school son. He did quite well in school, but you know what? I always wanted to go into law. But my kid kept telling me that he loved wolves. What middle school kid loves wolves? But he said the fascinating thing is one day he told me he even dreamt about wolves. So what I decided to finally do was take him on a park, go to Yellowstone, and have him meet with a park ranger. Just listen to this kid. And when I got there, I sat there with my mouth open because not only did my son and the park ranger begin to describe wolves in such detail, my son politely also corrected the park ranger about statistics about wolves. And that was the moment I realized I had to help my child learn to find biology or a different whole element in their lives. Step one, find out who your child is and follow their path. Step two, Emmy Warner says there's another thing about kids. That empathy piece, they were more likely to think we, not me. They have a sense of social competence, or they're able to at least attract others to them. And so when push comes to shove, these are kids who have a repertoire of, here's my go-to person. What we do know, says Emmy Warner, is that every kid needs a Aunt Hattie or a famous Mrs. Fredrickson, my first grade teacher, or a mom or a dad who refuses to give up on them. I think we need to make sure that we kind of shrink the village for our kids so that they know they have people who are supporting them. And the second thing we know is that this pandemic has set our children into kind of a loneliness trend where they haven't had a chance to practice their friendship making skills. Why that's necessary? Well, first of all, we do know that one of the most highly correlated traits of really good mental health is connection with others. You may not have been able to do it during a pandemic, but you can still practice it at home, and you can still do it even if you're wearing a mask. The three most highly correlated traits of well-liked kids that are going to give them that bounce of resilience. They say hello, and you can still do that with a mask. If you can't smile, which is another trait, you can at least wave, but they also encourage others. So maybe when you play shoots and ladders with your kids at home, or chess, or whatever you do, make sure that you also model thumbs up or high five or good job, because those are the three most highly correlated traits. The second thing about empathetic kids is that they can read feelings. You have to be able to read feelings, because what we do know is that children who can read feelings are more likely to be empathetic. She's upset, and I know she's upset. I'm going to see if I can do something about it because her face is really distraught. Or look how daddy's standing. He looks really frustrated. Or grandma sounds irritated. If you have feelings and understand them, you're far more likely to be able to be a thriver and reach out. When I was flying all over the world to be able to figure out what are the best ways to raise thrivers, this one was in Alberta, way far north. It's the Roots of Empathy program, and I am profoundly moved by this. The founder is Mary Gordon. We've become best friends. But what Mary Gordon has done is something revolutionary in terms of empathy. What she does is create a program where each classroom that chooses to do it adopts a baby for the year. The baby, named Clara, is 8 months old. Once a month, Clara comes into the classroom, sits on the middle of the green rug, and the teacher immediately prompts the kid, how does Clara seem to feel today? And the kids are able to read the progression of emotions. Can you imagine? Off of a baby. What they're learning is emotional literacy, but they're learning it, as one kid said, as a verb. I said, what do you mean it's a verb? He says, well, you don't learn this stuff on a worksheet. You got to see it and feel it. And we're learning it and seeing it and feeling empathy from Clara. Children who have been exposed to programs like this, they thrive. They also are more inclusive in a classroom. 800,000 kids around the world are exposed to this kind of a program. And what we also know is bullying goes down, emotional literacy goes up. Use a puppy in your house. Use daddy's face in your house. Tell grandma to come in and Zoom more often, because children need face-to-face connection. Those are a few ideas going, because there's three kinds of empathy. Three kinds of empathy. And I just mention this because some parents go, oh my gosh, my kid doesn't have empathy because he's so serious. Okay, he has cognitive empathy. That's the C kind, where he has perspective taking, and he's trying to step into the shoes of somebody and try to figure out, where's he coming from? Oh, bless this kid, because That's the kind of child we need in the world right now. You don't have to agree with your friend to tell your child, but try to understand where he's coming from. The affective kid, he's the kid you're going to really understand immediately. He's watching Bambi and he's a basket case for the next 3 weeks. He's just sobbing and crying your way through it. You're watching and reading Charlotte's Web. He's wiping away the tears. Some kids have affective empathy. Some kids have cognitive empathy. But empathy can be cultivated and it's lying dormant with American kids. It's at a 40% dip in the last 40 years. And then came the pandemic. But just because you have A and just because you have C, the best stress reducer there is, put them together. That's B. Do something about it. That's the behavior kind of empathy. And when you can feel with somebody else and go, let's deliver cookies for the neighbor next door. She looks so lonely. It's the best stress reducer there is. Lots of ways you can handle it. Of course, children's literature is another one. We know it's scientifically backed and fact that when you read like Charlotte's Web or Outsiders or Wonder or good old Harry Potter, the part of your brain where compassion is actually lights up. So if we can do anything with our children, let's expose them to literary fiction at far younger ages and let's keep them reading. And let's keep asking them what Martin Hoffman says is the greatest formula for empathy. How'd you feel if that happened to you? What would you need in order to feel better? As the kid gets older, how would your friend feel if that happened? What would your friend need in order to feel better? What I'm trying to do is share with you that thrivers are raised by simple science-backed strategies. Not all of these, but find a few that work for your child. Weave them in. Teachers are utilizing these. They make enormous differences on our children's lives. And now what you can do is habit number 3, which is self-control. I hope you realize that or seeing that, yeah, there's 3 kinds of thriver skills that we've talked about so far: confidence, empathy, and self-control. But there's also kind of a scaffolding effect. Self-control needs empathy, or at least it needs feelings in order to understand it, because thrivers can put the brake on impulses. And if you can't put the brake on impulses, you can't think straight, you can't self-regulate, and you go barreling into problems. Thrivers also have heightened stress. They are able to put that stress down because they know how to cope with it. And what we've got to be able to do is teach our kids some coping strategies. A couple of the simplest ones you can do is maybe this week, just help your child learn their body warning signs. Help daddy learn his body warning signs. Help the whole family learn your body warning signs. Because if kids know what my body is telling me right before you blow, or before you get irritated, or before you get angry, or before you really start to get really upset, you'll be able to tell yourself, I need to chill out and calm down. There's different signs for each child. But I've watched middle school girls. Sometimes they tell me my hands start to get really clammy. I've watched some kids grind their teeth. Other kids rock back and forth. Every kid has a different sign. There's no right or wrong kind of a sign. But the glorious, wonderful thing for a thriver is they figured out what their stress signs is. So they're able to say, I'm getting stressed before it starts to build. And we are looking at a rise in stress right now, folks, that's unprecedented. Anthony Fauci already tells us something that we better warn. That the next wave to the pandemic is not going to be just the pandemic. It's going to be a youth mental health crisis because we are seeing an unprecedented rise in it. Some other factors, when I look, the best things I've ever been taught anyplace else in the world, it was working on Army bases. And the commanders told me, go and interview the Navy SEALs. They're doing some amazing new coping strategies. Okay, how can you not want to be finding out what the heck the Navy SEALs do? The most elite forces in the world. But they tell me that they're retraining the most elite troops to be able to keep arousal control down and their cognitive abilities up. What are you doing? I say, well, the first thing we do is we identify our stress signs, just like I told you. The second thing is the minute we feel stress coming up, we tell ourselves, chill out or calm down. We come out with some kind of a positive phrase inside our head because we've got to keep the stress down or we can't think straight. Then we do a 1-2 breath. We take a slow, deep breath from our abdomen, fastest way to relax on record. Slow, deep breath like you're riding up an elevator. Hold it. Now slowly let it out. Exhale's got to be twice as long as the inhale. Keep teaching your kids how to do 1-2 breaths. And then we chunk our fear. We chunk our fear. Our goal maybe is to get through a battle, but our real goal is to get through the first 5 minutes, then the next 5 minutes, then the next 5 minutes. Those are 3 highly teachable traits that we can teach our own kids. That's how we help our kids learn self-control. And you don't learn it tonight. You keep learning it and practicing it until it becomes a habit. And now what begins to happen is what I call the multiplier effect. One of my aha moments when I was writing Thrivers is to realize it isn't one trait that works. Many times we think of resilience as one. It's not. It's multiple traits. You don't have to have all 7. So don't be in a panic mode of, oh my gosh, my kid doesn't have 7. It's a rare adult that has 7. But if you pair any 2 traits together, like self-confidence and empathy, it amplifies it and you're far more likely to thrive. If you put self-control with empathy together, wow, you're really going to make a difference and be able to help that child stand up to the bully. You're going to help that child become the change maker. Thriving traits together multiplies the odds that kids can handle adversity. Integrity is the 4th one. Fascinating. I know we all love integrity, but it also helps your kids thrive because sometimes there's mental adversity, mental problems that come up along the way when there's stress and the kid goes, oh my gosh, what's the right choice here? Something's wrong. They're doing something wrong. If you have to weigh it through and try to figure out what my value structures are, it becomes very stressful. But a thriver already has a strong sense of integrity. And so what he's able to do when push comes to shove is go, okay, I can think straight. I've got a strong moral code and here's what the decision is. We need to embed integrity into our kids at a far younger age. And one of the best ideas I've ever heard in my life comes from a kid named Marilyn Perlin. I was interviewing teachers along the way when I was writing Thrivers, and I asked teachers, hey, what's some kids I should be interviewing? And they said, Marilyn Perlin, go figure out how she became a kid with such strong integrity. Honestly, every high school teacher was talking about that particular kid who had graduated. When I finally met her, I said, okay, Marilyn, every teacher's talking about you. How'd you get that way? She laughed and said, it was how I was raised. Okay, how were you raised? She said, I remember when I was very young. My dad invited me and my 2 brothers into the family room. There's all the chart paper and marking pens on the floor. My mom and dad said, sit down. We're going to try to figure out what kind of family we want to be remembered for. Who are we as a family? What a fabulous, fabulous question. So we started brainstorming, and in a very short amount of time, we had terms like caring and kind and honest and respectful and responsible all over these chart papers. Mom was writing them all down. And then dad said, hey, this is good, but we can't be them all. Let's choose one. We voted for one. We all chose caring. And that's how we became the Caring Perlins. That was our family mantra. I went, well, that was pretty simple. She said, yeah, it was. I said, so how the heck did you become a Caring Perlin and remember it? She laughed and she said, it was impossible not to remember it. My mom must have said it 50 times a day. Remember, we're the Caring Perlins. When we'd go out, she'd drop me off at school. We're the Caring Perlins. We'd write it down. We're the Caring Perlins. She'd discipline us. Were you a Caring Perlin? We'd read a book. That was a Caring Perlin act. My parents said it so much, we became it. That's how you instill integrity in kids. That's how you instill conscience in kids. It's simple. That's one technique of many in integrity. There's lots of others, but let's keep going. Because the next thing we know of habit number 5 of the solid trait of character is thrivers are curious. They're not necessarily Albert Einsteins. I'm not talking that, but they're out of box kind of thinkers. And it seems to be enormously, enormously helpful. Because when the adversity comes, these are kids who find a way around it and through it. They're problem solvers. They're open to ideas. They're open to people. And so they don't stop and give up. Thrivers are kids who have that we got this kind of an attitude. Thrivers are also children who aren't rescued. They have agency and control over their own lives. And it doesn't mean you're going to give them the car keys at age 5. But slowly we got to step back. So when your kid comes barreling in and upset, this is your prime moment to sit down and say, tell me what's bugging you. Now let's brainstorm what else you could have done instead. What we do know is that Emmy Werner and all the work on resilience says one of the highest correlations of thrivers is they're problem solvers. Are we helping our children learn problem-solving techniques in their everyday moments along the way? For instance, teachers have these kinds of things, and that is what I can do, problem-solving wheels. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to put all those answers at the beginning, but how glorious that maybe you had a chart, and every time a kid comes up with one idea, two siblings are in a conflict. Okay, what's another idea you could have done differently between hitting your brother? Okay, we could talk it out. Good idea. Let's write it on our problem-solving wheel. Some parents have these and they keep adding to it on the refrigerator poster, or helping a child say, what else I can do when something's bugging me? The thing we know is that our children have got to learn internal control. They're not externally operated, they're internally controlled. And that's a highly correlated protective strategy of a thriver. We can't be there to always rescue our children. We've got to give them protective factors and protective strategies so that they can persevere. That grit model, Angela Duckworth is right. It's a highly correlated trait of success. But here's what we got to keep in mind. You can't, pardon me? Am I repeat? Oh, you can't just give kids possibilities and keep stretching them and saying, keep on going. But children who have perseverance have the ability to realize, I've got this. And one of the most highly correlated traits of a persevering child are really two things. First, the expectations of us, the parents. We use kind of like a rubber band technique, and that is we stretch the child gently from where they currently are. So our expectations keep stretching them, but don't snap them. That means the expectation is too strong, too high. The second thing we know about persevering kids is that they have what Angela Duckworth would call, and Carol Dweck would call, a growth mindset. Now, I want to talk about this one, but go one step more with it, because some phenomenal work is now coming through at the pandemic of which kids are most likely to strive and make it through and thrive during this tough time. China was one of the first to release the studies on the kids that they discovered were more likely to be resilient. And one of the strongest correlations of their resilient children, the kids who kept on going, is they had developed a growth mindset. That means the child felt like, I have control over this. If I keep working, if I keep practicing at it, I'll get better and better. I know it's hard right now, but I gotta keep working on it. Children who have a fixed mindset think it's all a matter of my IQ, or I don't have a good enough teacher, or I can't do anything about it. But if the parent also emphasizes not the end product, but the child's effort along the way. I know this is hard, sweetie pie, but if you keep working on it and you keep practicing on it, you're going to get better and better and better at it. Parents also find that one little stumbler that's bothering the child, not the whole paper, but what's the one little stumbler? Example, I took piano as a kid and I had Mr. White as my piano teacher. And I will be the first to admit it, I hated piano. I hated piano because of how he was teaching me piano. See, Mr. White had a philosophy, and that is if you made one mistake while you were playing Mozart or whatever, wherever the mistake was, you got to start all over again from the beginning. What happened was I got so stressed in no matter what I was playing that I would worry about my mistake, and I may be one bar from the end, I'd have to start all over. I hated piano. But bless Mrs. Thompson, that was my next piano teacher, because she had a different philosophy. She'd say, Michelle, let's just work on that one little stumbler. Let's just work on that one little bar. Those one little two chords you're getting wrong. Let's just keep practicing and practicing and practicing. And the more you practice, you'll get better at it. Now let's start from the beginning, Michelle. My stress was down. I began to love piano. That's a growth mindset model. And it's exactly the same thing that we now know that good coaches do. They don't say, you'll never get it, sweetie pie. Instead, they say, let's look at the video again. Oh, look, your foot is that way. Let's just pull your foot this way. Now you can kick it a little more. Let's keep practicing it. Growth mindset, perseverance. They're kids who are able to be more resilient until finally the child has hope and optimism. And I think the entire world needs hope and optimism right now. Some things we know about it. First, each one of these traits are learned. They're teachable. Some of the best work is going out from University of Pennsylvania that said, if we teach optimism to our kids the right way, we teach them problem solving, and we teach them how to keep the pessimism down so it doesn't erode and become permanent and pervasive, it actually reduces depression. What we're looking at is why resilience now can help our children, this mental health epidemic that's happening to our kids. If we teach the skills of thriving, it actually reduces the mental health problems. It helps them become peak performers. And there's some simple little things that we can do. I'm not saying that we're trying to raise Pollyannas. This is a tough time, and our kids do need to have a reality base. But there are some simple little skills that we can teach along the way. Skill number one, back to what we do know the Navy SEALs use, back to what University of Pennsylvania is also teaching. And that is the moment the pessimism starts to come, maybe come up with a family mantra. A family mantra could be nothing more than, we got this, we'll get through it, it'll pass, it's okay. I don't care what the mantra is, but if you've come up with one mantra as a family, and anytime there's an obstacle, you say it, and you keep saying it and saying it, saying it, here's the power. Your voice, parent, becomes your child's inner voice. And now pretty soon he's saying it internally to himself, and it helps him counter the pessimism. How simple is that? It takes a lot of practice, but can enormously powerful. Another thing that you can do, many of our children are so concerned about, is this ever going to be over? And we're concerned about it. We looked at children who have faced a lot of trauma in their lives, and we've discovered that if you can put a crisis in perspective, like a pandemic, for some kids who are little history buffs or health buffs or science buffs, you can say, let's study some science. Let's study a time when people still had similar kinds of problems like this. Like maybe there was polio, or maybe there was the Spanish flu, or maybe there was a bubonic plague, which there was. They suffered very similar kinds of things. They wore masks. Did you know it? But they got through it, and we will too. What we're noticing now is that there are science-backed strategies we can use. It doesn't work one time, but if we choose a couple of strategies, any of them in Thrivers, and keep using them over and over and over again, they become habits, and they become science-backed ways to help our children thrive. There's one more that I think we need to take a moment and get into the shoes of our kids. Think about what they've been watching for the last year. Frankly, it's atrocious. It's terrifying. They've been turning on a TV and watching a daily death count. Here's how many people died today. They've been watching a George Floyd murder live on TV. They've been watching coffins go all through. We're looking at an epidemic of pessimism. How do you keep hope alive? Well, there's some science on this one too. They found that images that our children watch, films that our children watch, books that our children watch, us modeling what they watch, can either elevate their hearts or take them down. Example, you may have seen it because it made history, and it was the far left. And it was the two kids in Ohio, brother and sister, who had empathy. They were worried about their neighbor down the end of the street because she was all by herself. She's elderly. Nobody comes to visit her mom. She's in that house all day and all night. She must be so sad and lonely. What can we do? And that's when they said, how about we bring our cellos, sit on our porch, Mom, and do a little concert for her. We're social distance, Mom. We'll stay safe. We won't go anywhere near her. We'll go on the far side. Bless Mom. So she said, go for it. They brought their cellos. They sat on the porch. They gave a concert. The woman absolutely loved it. She cried. Everybody else in the neighborhood came out in the street. They cried. And then Mom did something wonderful. She videoed it. She put it on Facebook, and it went viral. What happened was children saw it everywhere around the country and around the world, and they were inspired by it. And they said, I can do the same thing. See, it was empathy plus confidence because they identified their strength. These are kids who are already musically talented. So they said, I got a ukulele, or I got a tuba, or I've got a guitar. And that's why you're seeing ukulele concerts in Sacramento. You're seeing a tuba concerts in Long Island. It's because children say we can do something. Thrivers are made, not born. They usually have 7 strengths that seem to be highly correlated. There we have some myths about resilience that we got to break. It's not one program, it's a process. What I'm trying to do is put what the process looks like. It comes up with realizing that all of this is something that isn't locked into DNA. We can instill this in our children, any child. Yeah, there's different temperaments of kids, and that's why we've got to fine tune it and be creative. But it's also not fixed, it's teachable. It's never too late. There's not one window. We can start when our kids are little, but if our kids are now teens, okay, that's fine. They're in college, it's not too late there. It's not one trait. That's the other thing I keep hearing. What's the trait of resilience? It's not one. All of the research says it's a combination of it, but it always has caring adults, protective people in a child's life who refuse to give up on that child. So I thank you for letting me talk you through it all. That's what it looks like. Each chapter in Thrivers is one of those. You're going to also be getting a survey. I put together in here numbers of kinds of asset things, like how to figure out which of the traits is high or low in your own child. Don't go thinking, oh my gosh, she's doomed, but at least it's a starter point. Because if you realize he's high in self-control, go for it. Keep acknowledging it. You know he's high, low in empathy. That's the trait in the chapter you go to and you start working on it. In the back of the book, you'll also get the same thing, which is the strengths, that you'll figure out what the skills are and how to teach each one of those skills, not tomorrow, but for the rest of your parenting career. I think we're at a reset moment, maybe during this pandemic, to now know that our children need something more than GPA and a test score in order to be successful human beings. They've got to be able to know how to handle anything that comes their way, because if it's not adversity of a pandemic, it's going to be a hurricane, it's going to be a school shooting, it's going to be something else. The kids who can bounce back are children who have learned the skills of Thrivers. And that's just a little bit of what I wanted to share with you today. And thank you for listening. My website's Michelle Borba. It has dozens of other things, including little video clips to share parents. I mentioned one other thing that's fascinating. The state of California is so concerned about parents these days. What they've done is starting tonight, they've got thousands of parents signed up. We're doing an across the state, open to anybody in the country to come in, and we're going to be doing 8 different book clubs. You come in and I'll be doing a virtual book club. There's 1,000 parents signed up tonight. You are free to have anybody come in. The first 1,000 people are getting to get a copy of Thrivers. That's what the state of California is doing. I hope every state does something. So we help parents get some tools to raise strong, resilient, mentally healthy kids who can handle life without us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michelle. This was fabulous, truly fabulous. And there's a couple of things. If anyone on this Zoom event today is interested in helping Georgia do something like California and come together to form a book club, and if we can get the states or even different cities to buy in, schools, this would be amazing to do a book club in different schools and come together. I'm happy to help facilitate that. So, and then if we put together a book club, yes, you would come to it, Dr. Borba, to talk a little bit. We would.
Oh, I'd love to. I'd love to. What we're also doing is we're finding that there's certain things like Porchlight Books that are selling the books like at a 40% discount. It's amazing what they're doing. Amazon right now has a 40% discount on them. So it's that, but it doesn't make any difference about the book. I'm trying to get parents to know, here's what you can do, because parents are, I think, have hit the COVID wall as well. We're all burned out, but we just sometimes are looking for recognition that you make a difference, an enormous difference. And here's a couple of simple, no-cost, science-backed strategies you can use to help your kids thrive.
And these strategies are fantastic. If anybody has any questions, we have some time for Q&A. You can type your question in the chat. Also, while people might be thinking of their questions, probably tomorrow, the people who have sent in their emails to get this link, they will receive a gift from Dr. Borba. You will get a copy of the Core Asset Survey that you can use with your kiddos. And even if we have some educators or therapists or coaches on the call, this is a great tool. And you'll also get the 7 essential character strengths to help kids thrive. These are 2 PDFs that we will send out. My goal is to send them out tomorrow. So we hope that that will be helpful. And I think we have a question. Let me see. Amazing. Is there a handout? Yes, we will send the handout out tomorrow. And Amazon has Thrivers on sale for 40% off. We're getting a lot of thank yous. Very important information and helpful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Fantastic info. Thanks. Great information. Michelle, are you available for podcast interviews?
I love podcast interviews. They're absolutely fabulous. Yes, particularly if they're just by this, so I don't have to comb my hair. Love them.
Perfect. Awesome. Well,
My website's right.
this-
If you want to contact me, yes, thank you for the question. My website's right there and it has my email on there, so you can contact me there. The other thing is, if you're an educator, I don't know if any of you are educators, there is also on my website another download, and you're free to give it out if you want to there. It's a 17-page book discussion guide for educators on how to weave this into classroom content. So I'm trying to get teachers and parents on the same page together, and that's what the state of California is doing, going, let's all talk the same talk here.
Okay, another question from Dr. Lynn Kenny. Will you do a workbook on this?
Will I do a workbook? I am trying to come up for air on this right now. Thank you, Lynn Kitty. Well, I don't know. It depends upon the publisher because obviously they have the rights to it. But what I am doing right now is there, again, the 17-page work is there, but everything else in terms of the Thriver concept, almost everything is age related. I mean, it's really not a workbook needed because when you turn to it, what I did was crunch it down to here's how to do it with little simple nugget forms of for a 5-year-old, for a 10-year-old, for a 15-year-old by age. I was trying to make it simple and manageable so you could just flip it through. But if you'd like to talk my publisher into a workbook, go for it, girl. Thanks, Lynn.
Lauren, do you want to mention that Lynn's going to be on an event?
That's
coming
a
up?
great idea. Yes, let me, yes, in September. Lynn, do you have the date handy? Dr. Lynn Kenny, who is on this call, is going to be talking. And then in November, Deborah McNellis, who is on the call, will be speaking. So we have like a wealth of resources and passionate, authentic experts who are sharing their expertise with the Powerful Project and families and educators, therapists. So we are so grateful. Let's see. Lynn Kenny, do you want to say anything about your talk coming up in September?
Yeah, I feel like it's the 22nd, but I'm in my office right now, so I can't check. But I really love, I was with a client, so I only heard half an hour, but I love the idea of the Powerful Project having like a resource page of things that we're allowed to share, because at least the clients in our practice, they're so tired and overwhelmed that I feel like if we take Michelle's research and remarkably optimistic and hopeful view, and then we have pages of handouts where people don't have to go searching, I would love to have one place to send them. And I just bought Michelle's book on Amazon.
Okay.
Thank you, Lynn. I missed you. The last time I met with Lynn, we sat in the backseat of her car after we had breakfast and we did a podcast, something there was so fun. Lynn, I have missed you. I also did a series of 3-minute video clips. I can find them and get them to you if you need those, because I'm with you, Lynn. We're trying to find simple ways to help parents immediately realize these are ideas that we can use. And the videos are just watch 3 minutes and try these three ideas.
That's great. And maybe we can compile a one stop on the Powerful Project resource page. I like that idea. Another tool that I think we are going to send out to this audience is one of the personal power tools. This is a curriculum. It's a short workbook that Lori Patrice, who is a holistic psychotherapist, and I created. And they are simple tools to help self-regulate to understand emotional regulation, to understand about the big four emotion houses. And I mean, it's just so in sync with everything that you shared about today. So you will also get a tool, one of the personal power tools, a PDF handout will be sent as well. Okay, we have a text here. I would love to do a parent training group with this book. Do you have any recommendations or any info on your website about how to best do this?
Well, yes, what you do is, first of all, what's happening, and this is coming so quickly, working with the state of California, the first thing I'm doing now is creating one-pagers, one for each chapter of here's the single most important thing a parent needs to know so that you don't get overwhelmed with the chapter. Those will help, and eventually those will go on my website. I'm just creating those now. The second thing is, again, there's a series of 7 different 3-minute video clips that you could do on those. The third thing is, once you see the book Thrivers, you're going to see it's extremely easy. Parents are the ones who told me how to write it. Make it look like a cookbook so I can just flip through it. I mean, even the chapter on self-regulation has, here's 15 ways you can teach the same thing. It's like feather blowing versus bubble blowing versus the same thing of the Navy SEALs. What I tried to do is give you the here's what science says works, so that the footnotes in the back are 450 of them, but here's the easy way you can immediately crunch it for your child. If you've got other ideas on how to set up the train the trainer model, let me know, because I'm with you on it. I think the more we give information like this out to parents, the better. And by the end of the month, I will have all of it all set up for you in terms of how to keep starting this up for each chapter.
Wonderful. And that, I believe that was Erica Bland. She is a speech pathologist here in Atlanta who does a lot of parent work. So that would be fabulous. Are there other children's books that you are teamed up with, or other tools that you might have teamed up with to share about?
Other children's books? The book Thrivers has 300 children's literature selections in it.
Oh, wow.
So each chapter has a list of at least 25 children's literature by age. You know, I mean, my favorite of favorite is Fortunately by Remy Charlotte. Fortunately, Ned got a letter that says, please come to a surprise party. But unfortunately, the party was in Florida and he was in New York. So it's flipping it through. What I want to do is help parents also not just teach the skill, but also read something out loud to the child, or film versions of clips that you can use, so that it's easy for the parent to go to describe, here's what resilience looks like, and Ned's got resilience, here's what he's doing. Thank you for that question.
Fabulous.
There's another one that, in case you're up for more.
Pardon me?
What was that?
Oh, sorry. Was this on?
Yeah.
I was going to say, if you're still evolving that list, my friend Deborah here was on our podcast earlier, and we were excited about sharing. Deborah has the most amazing product as well. That's a group of cards for supporting kids and parents and all those activities. I don't know if you're aware of that. The parent packets, or what are they called again?
Neuro nurturing interaction packets. Thank you, Mark. Michelle has actually endorsed them and given a glowing review of them. So I appreciate that so much.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Thank you.
So I'm way behind. But so the True Sunbeam won the International Best Indie Book Award for children's books. So I don't have a publisher that I have to deal with, so I can go wherever I want.
What a concept!
And it's set up so that a different family member can different family member can color and sign and date a page in the book, so it becomes this family event to tell a bedtime story. And it's so much in alignment with everything you're doing here, and I'm just so excited to run across to be here and to hear this. And
I'm so glad.
It's so wonderful.
Well, it's trying to synergize all of this, and well, the other thing is trying to get parents to start talking the same language together. What I really am trying to do, for instance, cool. Keep in mind for Georgia. One of the things we're trying to do is tonight 1,000 parents are coming. But they're coming from all different kinds of schools, then across California or any place in the country. But what we then are doing is trying to get educators to come representing each school. So why the parents, when they're all alone, when they're all done, that coordinator from that school can say, well, come on in, we're going to have some lunch groups or some coffee groups and just talk about anything or ideas in our community that you can use. There's some service ideas or some cool, clubs that our children can be joining. I think we just need to keep networking and helping parents realize you're not alone. There's resources out there, but sometimes you don't know. So it's just another idea. Just keep cracking the whip and keep going. Here's another idea.
Thank you so.
And this is all online?
Pardon me?
This event tonight or the
event tonight
California thing is
pardon me? It's from, yes.
I missed that. It's
the state of California. I will be hired me to do 8 different book clubs. Each is a Zoom that any parent can join any place in the country or actually in the world. I've got people from the Philippines coming in. The first 1,000 people who register, California is giving them a free copy of Thrivers. So it's just going viral. And every week I will be doing 2 chapters of the book so that it's not necessarily the book, but 2 chapters of Thrivers. And that's how it works.
So again, I'm just going to
fantastic. That's
repeat.
brilliant.
Yeah, if any other states want to collaborate, come together, support one another to promote this, parents need this, families need this now more than ever. So with that, I don't think there are any more questions. I know you have another event to get to. We are so grateful for your time and for your sharing your wonderful information, research, and expertise.
Thank you.
Thank you
Good
so
to meet
much.
y'all. And it's so fun to see Lynn and Deborah. My God, what a call this is.
Well, and everybody who's on the call, sign up for Dr. Lynn Kenny's talk in September and Deborah McNellis's talk in November. And then we're already planning for 2022. We have some great speakers lined up for next year also. So.
And we'll connect with you, Michelle.
Guys, this was great.
Thank you,
guys.
We'll
Michelle.
connect with you, Michelle, about the podcast. That'll be in your email.
Okay. I'll look for it.
Thank you.
And this is recorded and will be posted on the Powerful Project website so that if you know others that couldn't make it today, make sure they are aware that they can access it there.
Thank you so much, Deb.
All right.
Thank you all for coming
so much.
and for making a difference in the life of a child. That's all we
Thank
need.
you. Thank you very much.
Glad you were here.
Thanks
All
again.
right.
Bye,
Lauren?
everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Lauren, can you hear me?
Yes.
Do you, can you reach out to, like, say, Covenant House of Georgia? Because all those teens are all very much, under extreme stress.
Will you send me an email?
Yeah, right now I tried to reach out to them. They're actually building, they're in process of building things.
Okay, wait, Karen, we could talk about this. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about it another time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
All right, thank you so much.
Bye,
Uh-huh.
everyone.